Okay.
We're off.
And we're off. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Lunchtime Live. I'm Adrian Mather. I work in the marketing department here at FreeAgent, and I'm joined with by Emily Coltman, who's our wonderful chief accountant. We are here today to talk a wee bit about expenses and tax for home-based businesses. So people work from home, people that run a business from home, because there's an awful lot of things that you need to know, and an awful lot of information that's challenging, to say the least, I think. So we're going to open the floor completely today to any questions that anyone has about the tax implications of working from home or from running a business at home, or for any expenses that they have. Just fire them through. The Q&A app is open on the right, and we'll be ready to go. Just a little bit more before we start. So, I said earlier, we're from FreeAgent, which, as hopefully many of you will know, is online accounting for small businesses and freelancers. We run these sessions once a month now, the video hangouts, and which are going really well. There's been a great response today. We've got 127 people that have said they're signed up for it, so that's great, brilliant. I hope as many of you are watching as possible, either live or later on when this goes up on YouTube and on the page. If you don't know about us, we'll come into that a little bit at the end to give you a bit more information about who we are and how to sign up, take a free trial, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, do bear with us. But I think to start off with today, I've got one very kind of quick, brief question that I'm going to ask. Just to set the scene, and then we'll go into the Q&As that have already come through. If you're watching this and you do have a question, just put it up into the Q&A app, and we will do our utmost to answer everything that comes through. And if it starts to get really busy, we'll give you a warning later on when time's running out, just so that we can answer as many as possible. But I think to start with, if you can just kind of give us a little bit of an overview about the kind of the very the main things that someone that's running or starting a business from home kind of needs to know when it comes to the tax and the big expenses that they need to keep on top of.
Well, what you need to remember is that if you're working from home, you may well be able to claim a proportion of your household running costs in your business's expenses and pay a bit less tax as a result of that. So the running costs you might think of are things like gas and electricity, council tax, rent, mortgage interest, not mortgage capital, mortgage interest, possibly repairs to your house, possibly cleaning, possibly insurance. There's a number of them. In a lot of cases, you'd use what I call the business proportion of your household running costs. And HMRC say that you can take any reasonable and fair method to work that out. That might be number of rooms, it might be floor area of your house, it might be whatever you choose to make it, so long as you can explain it to a visiting tax inspector and so long as it's fair and reasonable. So, for example, if you've got 10 rooms in your house and you use one of them for business 80% of the time, what you would do is you take your total household bills, the ones that you can claim for, and I think we'll go into that a bit more when we do some of the questions. You take the total household bills, you divide them by 10, because you've got 10 rooms and you're using one of them for business, and then you multiply that by 8% for the business use, and that's the figure you claim. So shall we fire through some of the questions then, Adrian?
I think so, and then if there's anything that we can think of that that comes up, we can address them as well. When it comes to watching this back as well, if you're watching this video, then all the questions that answer you can skip to on the video as well, and I'm going to try and make that as smooth as I possibly can.
Okay.
So we'll go with the first question, which is from Bianca, who says, I live in a 2-bedroom maisonette and I work from home. As I use one of the bedrooms exclusively as my office, I claim 50% of my use of home expenses. If I move to a 4-bedroom house, however, I assume I'll only be able to claim for 25%. Is that right?
Okay, Bianca, there's a couple of things I'm going to call to your attention here. The first is you say it's a 2-bedroom maisonette. Presumably there's other rooms in the maisonette, things like a living room or a dining room or a kitchen. So I think 50% of your expenses is going to be too much, because you need to consider the room you're using in the context of the whole maisonette, not just in the context of the number of bedrooms. And it would be the same if you moved to a bigger house. So it's going to be, for example, 1 room out of 5, not 1 bedroom out of 2. The other point is, if you are buying your house, particularly, don't use a room 100% for business use all of the time. Use it exclusively for business when you're working in it, but have some other use for the room at other times. So, for example, have it double up as a spare room, or my office doubles up as my music room, or whatever it might be. Why? Because if you are buying your house and you then sell it, HMRC will charge you capital gains tax on the part of the house that you just use for business all of the time. So if you are buying your house, don't use a room exclusively for business. That would be what I would say to you, Bianca.
Okay. So we're done with that one. The next question we have is from Decon, who says, what are the main daily items and what are the limits of what you can claim VAT back on? So i.e. lunch, petrol, electricity, etc.
Okay, so that's partly related to working at home and partly related to general business expenses. Basically, the main rule here, Dickon, is that you can claim in your accounts anything that is wholly and exclusively for the purpose of the business. That's what HMRC say. I'm assuming, by the way, that you're a sole trader. And so HMRC are quite strict when it comes to food and drink for a sole trader. And this is another point, actually. If you work at home, you might think, oh, I can put the cost of my lunch in the books. I'm sorry, you're out of luck, because HMRC say that everybody must eat in order to live. So you wouldn't be able to claim the cost of your food and drink while you're at home working at home. You can claim the cost of food and drink as a sole trader if you are out and about on business and the journey is outside your normal pattern of business, or if your business is by nature itinerant. So say you're a chimney sweep, you sweep one chimney and then go and do another and another and another. Or if you are staying away overnight on business. Those are the only circumstances where you can claim food and drink. To be honest, Dickon, the rules are so vast that I can't really go into them all here. So I would say that's the basic rule of thumb. If in doubt, do talk to your accountant. In terms of claiming VAT, you can only do that if you're registered for VAT. So again, have a chat with your accountant about that.
Okay, I hope that helps, Declan. Next question is from Angel, who says, I work from home and I use my living room and kitchen as my work area as I blog and write. What can I claim? The area takes up to 50% of the house. So that's kind of related to what we've been talking about before. It
is indeed. So I gave a very brief summary of what you can claim sort of right at the beginning of the call. Think about claiming things like gas, electricity, rent, council tax, mortgage interest. In terms of floor area, that is certainly one method that HMRC say you can use to work out how much of your household running costs are business and how much are private. Floor area, number of rooms, yes, you can use those measures.
Okay, it's actually a follow-up kind of question here, which is coming from Liliana. I think I've pronounced that right. I kind of hope I have. She says, I rent a bedroom in a house, a single bedroom in a house. Yeah. In my bedroom is also my office, so what can I claim there?
Okay, Liliana, so I'll assume that you're doing what I did when I was training to be an accountant. I'll assume you're living in lodgings and that you're renting a room and that's the only room you've got. What I'd say is presumably you'd pay X amount for your rent. I don't know if you pay anything else towards the household bills. I don't know if you pay anything else towards the telephone. But what I would say is work out how much you use your room for business and how much is for private, and then think about claiming the percentage of private use, business use. So, for example, if you use your room 80% for private purposes and 20% for office purposes, you could claim 20% of the rent that you pay. You could claim 20% of your share of the household bills. Phone bills actually work a bit differently because then you have to have a look at how much you use the phone for business. You have to get, for example, an itemised bill. Or if it's something like an inclusive minutes contract, take your best guess, but make sure it's an educated best guess that you can support to a HMRC inspector. There's no hard and fast rules. So make sure that you know how much you've used the phone for business and claim that amount.
Okay. Next question is from Anthony, who says, I use my front room as an office. Can I claim for that, as I do also have bikes in there and I have coats and shoes, etc. Can I claim for it? And how do I record it in FreeAgent?
Okay, Anthony, the good news is, yes, you can claim for it. Claim for the amount that you use that room for business. So if you use it for bike storage and coats and shoes, presumably the room's heated during that time, for example, because you might need to dry off wet coats or wet shoes. So that would be private use. So work out how much you use the room for business and then claim the costs relating to that. In terms of recording it in FreeAgent, brilliant question. What you do is you put it in under expenses, or My Money expenses if you can see the My Money menu, and you record it as an expense payment to the category use of home.
Excellent. Hope that helps you, Anthony. Next one. I think some of these are actually going to be getting into not just home business kind of stuff, and that's fine too. We'll totally take them. Yep. We'll take them all as they come. This is a question from Radim, who says, I went to a trip abroad which was partly leisure and partly business. Can I claim travel expenses such as my flight ticket, taxi, etc.? I'm a sole trader.
Oh, Radim, I think you could be on a bit of a sticky wicket there, I'm afraid. If you knew when you went that the journey was for mixed business and mixed private, there was actually a case where HMRC would not let a solicitor claim any of the flights or travelling expenses when he went overseas because he took his wife and they had a holiday together afterwards. If the flights didn't cost any extra because you went on a mixed trip, if you had hotel accommodation that you could split between the days of business and the days of personal, then you might be able to apportion it, but you're going to have to be very careful. I would discuss that with your accountant.
And you'd have to be very careful and be able to actually sort of justify that and show exactly what you had in case you get challenged by HMRC.
Quite right, Adrian, because HMRC may well try to say that the primary purpose of that trip was for leisure and you just happened to do some business at the same time. They might try to say, well, it was mixed, so you can't claim anything. Do discuss that thoroughly with your accountant.
Okay. Next question we have here is from Pez, who says, if you have a limited company, what additional things can be claimed compared to a sole trader? So I think that's from working from home.
That's right, yes. In terms of working from home, what you can claim is pretty well the same, but there's an extra hoop that you have to jump through. We've got a blog post about that, which would be great if we could share. What you basically have to do is ask your accountant to draw up a rental agreement between you and your company, because the company is renting the room from you. Then that goes in the company's accounts, and then you have to put that income as rental income on your tax return, but it will be offset by the costs you've incurred running your home. As I say, we've got a blog post about that, and do have a chat with your accountant if you're stuck.
Okay, so if we've not got that blog post up yet, we will find it and link to it. But I think we've got other information that's currently on the website about differences of sole trader and limited companies and that sort of stuff. So we will definitely get something up there. Next question is from Kirsty, who says, both my partner and I work from home. I'm a sole trader and he is a limited company. Are there any rules that will prevent us from claiming the same percentage of household running costs?
Good news, Kirsty, the answer's no. But if between you what you're claiming adds up to more than 100% of household running costs, then a very sharp-eyed HMRC inspector might start asking awkward questions. So make sure that between you are not claiming over 100% of household running costs.
Excellent. Next question here is from Michael, who says, I develop websites working from home. How much of the broadband costs can I claim?
Basically, Michael, how much you can claim is how much you use for business. So you need to work out as accurately as you possibly can how much you use your broadband for business and how much you use it for personal use, things like surfing Facebook, booking holidays, this, that, and the next thing. And you need to claim the percentage of the broadband that you use for business. Okay.
Next question is from Chris, who says, how do you work out what percentage of gas and electricity you use for business when working from home? Also, I've read 2 conflicting articles about claiming water rates. Can you claim a percentage of water rates or not? Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Thank you for your question. Okay, so I'll take the second question first. In terms of water rates, my understanding, based on what I've read on the HMRC inspectors manuals, is that no, you can't claim water unless you have a separate pipe for business, which is metered and billed separately. So, for example, if you've got a dog grooming parlour or you do laundry at home, then you might have a separate water pipe and be billed separately. My understanding is if there's only minor use of the home, like use it to write up your books and what have you, you cannot claim any water, unfortunately. In terms of gas and electricity, what you do is you calculate what I call the business proportion. So that means you can use any fair and reasonable method to work that out. It might be floor space. I like to use number of rooms. So you add up the number of rooms in your house, you work out how many of them you use for business, you work out what percentage of those you use for business. So in my earlier example, that would be, for example, you take your gas and electricity bill, you divide by 10 for the number of rooms, multiply by 1 because you only use one of the rooms for business, multiply by 80% because you use that room 80% for business. That's what you claim.
Okay, I hope that helps, Chris. If not, then drop us another question and we'll be more than happy to go into more detail and stuff. Next question here is from Ben, who says, is it correct that an alternative to calculating costs based on a percentage of home used is to claim a flat fee of £4 per week?
You're on the right lines, Ben. What actually happens with the £4 a week is that HMRC say if your business use of home claim works out to £4 a week or less, they will not ask you to produce receipts to prove what you've claimed. If your claim's higher than that, then they might ask you to produce receipts like your gas bill and electricity bill. In terms of a flat rate allowance, if you're a sole trader and your turnover is under the VAT threshold, which is £81,000 a year at the moment, you can claim a flat rate allowance which replaces some business use of home calculations. It replaces gas and electricity, it replaces insurance, it replaces internet and telephone, but it doesn't replace things like rent or council tax or mortgage interest because those are going to be so different in different parts of the country, and the allowance is flat rate countrywide. The allowance varies depending on how much you work at home, and again, I think we've got it on the website, haven't we?
I think so, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope that helps, Ben. Next question is from Stephanie, who says, does all of this apply, so I think she's been talking about everything that we've talked about so far, does all of this apply if you have a UK-based business but work from home abroad? Right,
okay, that's getting outside my area of expertise, Stephanie, because you may well be subject to the tax laws of the country where you work, so I'm not going to even try to answer that, I'm afraid, because I might well give you the wrong information. I would speak to both a UK accountant and a local accountant for advice.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, and it's the same the other way around as well. You know,
yes,
if you're a UK business, so. But you're working kind of with overseas clients and stuff as well.
I think what Stephanie means is, for example, she has her business based in the UK, but she might work from home in France.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hope that's helpful. Next question is from Paula, who says, I use my mobile phone for work and personal and purchased it for the data capabilities as I do social media for a number of clients and need constant online access. How do I calculate how much to claim each month?
There's no hard and fast rules set by HMRC, Paula, so what you need to do is you need to pick what you consider to be a fair and reasonable basis. So, for example, work out how much you pay each month. Think about how much you use the phone for personal and how much you use it for business and take a fair approximation. Work out, for example, that you use your phone 80% for business and 20% for personal and claim 80% of the cost. But as I say, make sure it's fair and reasonable and can be justified if an inspector ever asks to see it.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Paula. Next question is from Neil, who says, I have a limited company, I work from home. If I charge my company rent, am I right in thinking that although it would reduce the tax the company would pay, I'd still have to account for the rent received in my personal tax, and I'd be taxed on that?
You are nearly there, Neil. There's just one more step you take, which is that because you personally have incurred those costs of running your home, your rent received in your personal tax return is offset by the costs that you've spent on your running costs. So you personally do not pay any extra tax and the company saves some tax. So it's actually a nice little win-win situation.
Excellent. Bonus.
Yep.
Okay, Stephanie's back again, I think with a follow-up to what she was talking about before. Yeah. She says, I work from home wherever I am, location independent, I work in cafes to access Wi-Fi, etc. Can I claim food and drink?
I really wish I could say yes, Stephanie, but I'm afraid, strictly speaking, the answer is no, because HMRC would not view that as an alternative to rent. They would see it as food and drink, and they say you have to eat in order to live. So unless you can try and claim that you are in a cafe where you wouldn't normally go, that the journey's outside your normal pattern of work, but I think HMRC might squash that. That is actually a rule that I would like to see them update for the 21st century way of working, but HMRC, don't get me started, I might say something unprofessional. So, so no, you can't, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think best leave that alone.
Best leave that alone.
And Stephanie's actually back with another one straight away. She says, do we simply input the percentage of the expense into FreeAgent and upload the receipt which shows the full cost?
Yes, so for example, if you've worked out that you're going to claim £6 from a £60 receipt, you enter into FreeAgent, into expenses a payment of £6 rather, for use of home, and you upload the receipt which shows 60. Ideally, write a note on the receipt that says something along the lines of, that maybe even shows your calculation, shows how you worked out how 60 became 6.
Okay. Okay, follow up from Anthony, who says, thanks very much for answering my question. Not a problem, thank you very much for putting it in.
Asking it, yes.
When I pay towards my bills, do I have to get some form of receipt or proof of household bill to show what I'm paying against?
Ideally, Anthony, yes. So if you get your receipt emailed to you, save a copy of the email. If you get the bill sent as a text message to you, then take a screen print on your phone, use it of that text message. Do try and get some proof if you possibly can, because if you get a visit from HMRC, they may well ask to see that.
Okay, and a follow-up from Bianca as well, who also says, thanks very much for answering my question.
Pleasure.
Says, RE, the number of rooms in a house, do you include or exclude the kitchen and the bathroom? And she just says, sorry if it's a stupid question.
It's not a stupid question, Bianca, it is an excellent question. And unfortunately, would you believe there is no hard and fast guidance from HMRC, and different accountants say different things. Some accountants say, no, don't count them. Other accountants, me included, would say, well, if you're paying for gas and electricity, you are paying to heat your kitchen and your bathroom as well. If you're paying rent, then you wouldn't rent a house without a kitchen or a bathroom. I would say put them in.
Okay. Would you say the same for, say, if you have like a sort of smaller box room or a porch or something like that?
Porch, not if it's not enclosed. For
Okay.
example, my husband and I have got a vestibule on the front of our house, which is a separate screened off area, but there's no heating there. So I would probably have left that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I would say include things like the hallway, because you've still got to heat it,
Mm-hmm.
and you wouldn't have, might well not have bought the house without it.
Okay. Sorry, I just snuck in there with an extra one there.
It's a very good question.
Okay, take this question from James, actually, because I think people might there might be quite a few people that are interested in this.
Yes.
He says, when we say 80% of the times when we're talking about the amount of time that you use a room, what is the time? Is it 24 hours, 12 hours, the hours when I'm awake, the hours when I work, etc.? What does it mean?
That is a very good question, James. I would say think of how much you use that room. So think of, say, if you are using that room and you think that 80% of how much you use that room is for business use. So I don't take my percentage of the time I'm using my office as a percentage of 24 hours. I think, okay, when I use my office, 80% of that use is for business, and 20% is for a music room. So it's in the context of how much you use the room.
Okay. I hope that helps, James. Okay, next question here from Philippa, who says, I'm the sole director of a limited company working from home. I have £5,000 of expenses and have now made some sales. Do I need to register with the revenue for PAYE if I'm just repaying expenses to myself?
Very, very good question, Philippa. The answer is, it's, again, I don't think HMRC actually give guidance on it. My experience has been that I've got my own limited company, which I registered for PAYE, I was reimbursing expenses, I had a payroll scheme set up, but I was paying nil salary to myself, and HMRC actually shut the payroll scheme down because I was paying nil salary. So my suggestion would be, it's worth ringing the PAYE helpline and asking them what you should do in that situation. Strictly speaking, I would say probably yes, you should register, but equally, HMRC, if you're not taking a salary yet, equally you might, you don't have to register for real-time information, reporting your salary in real time, if you are not yet paying a salary from the company to yourself. Excuse me. And also, as I say, HMRC might say, well, there's no reports coming in, there's no salary being paid, shut the scheme. So I would consult an accountant, and I would also phone HMRC.
Okay, hope that helps you, Philippa.
Yeah.
Next question from Gemma, who says, I have a garden studio. Do I count that as a room when calculating my work from home allowance and work out the same as if it were inside my house?
Very good question, Gemma. I'm presuming your garden studio is where you do your work, and I'm presuming that you have to heat it and light it and what have you separately, and that the insurance is separate. I would say that that would actually be a different calculation from if you were working inside your home. I would say, I don't know if you have separate bills for your garden studio. If you do, then you'd actually handle them slightly differently. You'd say, for example, electricity for the studio is £100. I use my studio 90% for business, claim £90. You wouldn't have to work that out on the basis of how many rooms in the house if the studio is being billed separately. If the bills are all inclusive, if you, for example, pay the electricity bill for the house and the studio all together, then I would say that that you would claim the percentage bills just as if the studio were inside the house.
Okay. We've still got lots of questions coming in. Thanks very much, everyone. I think we'll probably go over, I think, by that sort of 10-15 minutes or so.
Yes, we will. We'll just count through the questions.
So yeah, so if you have if you have a question that we haven't asked and you haven't put into the Q&A app yet, then do so now, but we'll probably only be taking those for the next sort of 3-4 minutes, because then the next 15 minutes we'll be just plowing through all of these. So
yes.
So yeah, if you have a new question, then put it in the next 5 minutes, and we'll answer it. Okay, a follow up from Stephanie, who says, what do you do if you learn that you filed your tax return with unclaimable expenses, i.e. food and drink from cafes where you work?
Okay, well, to be honest, Stephanie, that is not going to be a huge amount. So my suggestion from a practical point of view would be correct it on your next tax return. HMRC say, strictly speaking, you should file an amended tax return, but I'm thinking that if the amounts are tiny, and particularly if the difference is not going to put you into a different tax band, so for example, taking them off wouldn't put you into high rate tax, I would say correct it on your next year's tax return.
Okay, a question here from James, who says, does the same apply for a mortgage payment if you're working from home?
Yes, it does, James, but you must include only the interest, not the capital.
Okay, short
quick one.
Short and sweet. We like those. Okay, Robin is on. He or she, sorry, asks. I'm a director of a limited company contracting in IT. I've previously been working at client sites. I'm about to start a contract with a US company. I'll be working from home. I'd like to build a new office in the garden. Can this be a business expense? Very
good question, Robin. And actually, how you deal with that cost, the cost of that office, is a subject of quite fierce debate amongst accountants. Whether, for example, the cost of the office would be allowable for capital allowances, or whether you would just have to claim the cost of heating and lighting it and what have you. So my suggestion would be talk that through with your accountant, because, as I say, it's a matter for debate.
Okay. Hope that helps, Robin. We'll take this question from Tristan, I think, next. It says, I'm a sole trader. My work is presenting to groups of customers. What clothing allowances am I allowed to claim?
Tristan, I'm afraid the answer is none, because this is a bit like food and drink, where HMRC say we all have to wear clothes. So, for example, the purpose of Adrian's FreeAgent t-shirt is not just to advertise FreeAgent, but it's also to keep him warmly and decently clad.
Decently, maybe.
Okay, is to keep him decently clad. So it has what HMRC call an intrinsic dual purpose, which means it has to be for business and private use. There are some exceptions to that rule for clothing. One is if you are an actor or another entertainer and you're wearing a costume, you can claim the costume. For example, that might be a clown's outfit. If you are working, for example, on a building site, you can claim the cost of your site, your steel toe cap boots as protective clothing. And if you are in a profession that requires you to wear a uniform, so for example, you might be a self-employed nurse and you might wear a nurse's uniform, that you can claim. Other than that, I'm sorry, Tristan, you're out of luck.
Yeah, sorry. We'll take this question from Clive. This might not be one that we can answer, but I'll run it past you anyway. It says, our company ran out of money last May and hasn't paid any salary since then. Should we deregister for PAYE, and how do we do it? I can't afford an accountant as I still run my company on my old age pension.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Clive. It sounds like you're having a tough time. What you would have to do is file what's called a final RTI return to HMRC to let them know you have ceased the payroll scheme. You can't unfortunately do that through FreeAgent. You'd have to use HMRC's basic tools, but HMRC do have a free helpline for employers if you wanted to ring them up and ask their advice. As I say, my understanding is that you would file a final return, RTI return, to advise HMRC you're closing your payroll scheme.
Okay, yeah, I hope that helps, Clive, and yeah, sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
We'll
to take that one from James.
From James.
Because I think that's a good one.
Okay. James says, sorry, I'm still slightly confused over how to calculate the percentage of home use that I claim for. If I work out of a room in my flat for 8 hours per day and the room is 25% of my flat, is the percentage that I can claim for heat and rent, etc., 8 out of 24 hours times 25, so 8.25.
No, it isn't, James. You're slightly confused about the time still. You don't take 8 hours out of 24, you take 8 out of the number of hours that you use the room. So if you say, for example, you work in that room for 8 hours a day, then you spend another 2 hours in that room playing on your computer or making music or whatever it might be, then it's going to be 8 out of 10, not 8 out of 24.
Exactly. So you're dividing the overall number by the number of rooms in the house, and then you calculate
by the number of hours you're in there. So
yeah.
You're not saying 24 hours because you're not using that room for 24 hours unless you live in there and never leave. You're saying you take 8 hours as a fraction of the number of hours that you actually use that room.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right.
I hope that helps, James.
Yeah.
We'll take this one from Laura. I think this might actually just be putting you through to our website, but she says, is there an app that integrates with FreeAgent Online?
There's lots of them, Laura. It depends what you want to use it for. So what I would suggest you do is go to the FreeAgent website and look at the page for integrations and add-ons, and you'll find lots there.
Exactly. We'll post the link on the page as well.
Yeah.
So go and take a look for that. Okay, Paula is back. She says on the FreeAgent overview dashboard, it has a figure for drawings. I don't currently include any figures here, but I use money in my business account for personal use. I don't own over the personal allowance threshold. Is this okay?
Okay, Paula. When you spend money out of your business account for personal purposes, you should explain that in FreeAgent as money paid to user and drawings, because as a sole trader, the business does not pay you wages. The business is you. Legally, you are the business, and you can't pay yourself wages. So if you use money in your business account for personal purposes, you must explain that as money paid to user drawings.
Okay.
Yep.
Hope that helps, Paula. Next question is from, I think this is either Iona or Lona.
Ilona.
Ilona, sorry. Sorry, I'm terrible with names today. Apologise for that. It says, hi, I use our kitchen and spare bedroom as my work area, but our house bills are in my husband's name only. Does my name need to be added to the bills in order for me to be able to claim energy expenses?
Interesting question, Ilona. I would say there are rules around that, certainly for VAT, so I don't know whether HMRC would take that as a basis. So what I would say is that if you can show that you pay the bills jointly, and if from a joint bank account, for example, if you can show that both names are on the mortgage, then you would have a very good case to say, look, part of the bill relates to your activities, and therefore you should be able to claim part of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Radim says, thanks very much for answering my question, guys.
Pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. We have a question here from Rob, who says, I recently had a home extension to create a dedicated home office space. I paid for the build personally, as otherwise I'd pay capital gains tax on selling, but can my business pay for decoration and fittings?
Well, as I said to a similar question earlier, Rob, that is a matter of fierce debate amongst accountants, so I would probably suggest you go through that with your accountant personally.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, but
yeah.
Yeah, you're probably best asking asking someone over a longer period of time, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, James is back, says, thanks. I think I understand the time calculation now, but I've been claiming it against 24 hours instead of total time that the room is used for the last few years. What should I do to rectify this?
The thing is, James, that there are no hard and fast methods set by HMRC. You can use any fair and reasonable method. So it may well be that you say, okay, well, that was a fair and reasonable method to use. Equally, of course, it could be that you've been doing yourself out of money that you could claim. So if you're taking, for example, 8 out of 24 instead of 8 out of 10, you've been claiming a smaller percentage of the bills than you might otherwise have been able to claim. So then you've got the choice of either revisiting your earlier tax returns and changing the figures as far back as you can, or from a practical point of view, as these are going to be small amounts involved, you could just correct your current year's tax return and claim a bit more this year.
Okay. Next question from Alistair, who says, I'm a sole trader and have a 2 bank account set up. Through this, I transfer a certain amount of my earnings from the business bank to my personal account. Am I correct in putting this in as drawings?
You are indeed, Alistair. Well done.
Excellent. Thomas. That's Alona back saying, thank you very much for answering my question. The session's been really helpful. Pleasure. Yep. Absolute pleasure. Next question. Actually, from Alona again.
That's a duplicate. It's the one that came in earlier. So yep, just mark that one done.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Next question from Laura says, my business partner works mainly from an office with our main client. Is he able to claim for lunch and travel?
That's a very good question, Laura. It depends on a lot of things. It depends on where the client's office is based. It depends on where the home is. It depends if the home is a base of operations. There's going to be a lot of ifs and buts involved in there. You're going to have to talk that through with your accountant.
Okay. Paula says, by the way, I use FreeAgent. It's great.
Thank you.
Switch to it for this tax year, and it's so easy to use.
Great.
Brilliant
Glad to help.
Next question from Brannon. So he says, I'm a director of a limited company who works during the office from the day, then an average of around 4 to 5 hours each evening from home, as well as weekends. What can be claimed in this instance? Okay,
so Brannon, what that sounds like is that you've got an office away from your home that you rent, and that you also do a bit of work from home. So what I would say is that you would be able to claim the cost of when you work from home, take that as a percentage of how much you actually use that room at home, and put that in as well.
Okay, got a follow-up from Gemma who says, thanks very much for answering my question. Again, pleasure. I may have missed this, but where do I enter drawings in FreeAgent?
Okay, Gemma, well, when you are explaining a bank payment, you explain it as money paid to user, you change the type from payment to money paid to user, and then you choose drawings as the reason.
Okay, that's going to be a 5-minute warning, everyone, so if you have another question, then put it in. You can get in quick. But we'll probably be shutting down in about 5 minutes as we're sort of drawing to a close now. But we'll take the last few. Tristan is back and says, I'm looking to grow my business to include wine tourism in the future.
Brilliant.
Sounds fantastic.
Can I have a job?
I wish to investigate regions and build relations abroad. What expenses can I claim?
It sounds like you almost certainly could claim for travel and accommodation abroad in that situation, Tristan, because it is for work, it is for research. Be very, very careful if you double up those trips as holidays, though, because that can raise eyebrows at HMRC. So make sure that the purpose of the trip is just for business. I would also say if you're trying to build relations, quote unquote, and you are entertaining people, maybe that's future clients, suppliers, whoever it may be, you can't claim tax relief on the cost of entertaining them. So watch out for that. Okay.
Laura is back. She says, are drawings the same as dividends for a limited company?
Laura, the rules are very different for a limited company. When you're running your business through a limited company, you and your company are separate legal entities, and there are quite strict rules around how the company can pay you money. It can pay you a salary as a director, it can pay you dividends on the shares you own, so long as the business has enough profit, and it can pay you back for expenses you've incurred personally for the business. They are very different rules. Don't try and think of them as the same thing, drawings for a sole trader, dividends for a limited company. There are very different rules.
Okay. Another question from Radim, who says, I work as a cameraman and I sometimes use tools for my business that are not primarily designed or labeled as cinematographer's tools, but general household things. For example, pegs to hold gel filler on the lights, etc. Can I claim for those?
Interesting question, because you can claim the business proportion of use of, for example, a computer or a chair. But I think, to be honest, Radim, in the case of something like pegs that you would buy anyway to hang your washing out and you have to have anyway, and they're of small value, I would probably say don't spend the time to work that out. You'd be better advised to just leave that alone.
Okay. Hope that helps, Radim. Next question from Robert, who says, when apportioning use of home for a dedicated home office, should it be divided by number of total rooms in the house or usable rooms? If the latter, what is a usable room? E.g., if my lounge is a dedicated lounge, is it usable as an office? Okay,
well, I've addressed the issue of what rooms you should include in the business proportion earlier in the discussion. In terms of usable rooms, as in, what I think you're meaning here, Robert, is rooms that you could use for business. But how I would approach it is to say, well, what reason, what purpose do you actually use that room for business? Not could you, but do you? So think in terms of, do you use your office to work? Do you actually work in your lounge? Do you maybe write at the kitchen table? Think about the rooms you actually do use for business.
I think we'll take this question from Valantis, I think now. It says, can you rent your PC for your business?
Well, that's a very difficult question because it's very brief. So I don't know, for example, are you a sole trader, limited company? Do you mean can you rent a PC for your business to use? Do you mean can a business rent a PC from you? It's a bit of an awkward question. If you are a sole trader, then yes, you can claim a business proportion of a personal asset like a computer in your business accounts. If you are the director of a limited company, it becomes quite a lot more awkward because if the company owns an asset and you use it personally, then you'll quite probably have to do a P11D and do a taxable benefit on it. So that is a complicated question. I'd say you need to explain the full circumstances to your accountant.
Okay. We've got another question here from Anthony, who says, I bought a laptop about 2 or 3 years ago solely for my design business, which I set up last August. How do I claim for it on FreeAgent, as unfortunately I don't have any receipt of the purchase and I can't obtain one?
Okay, well, to work out the price, Anthony, presumably you've got your credit card receipt or you've got a line on your bank statement that shows that money going out of your bank. Use that for your price and keep a copy of that in FreeAgent and record it as, presumably if you bought it as an expense, you put it in as my money expenses. Also, you need to consider what the market value of that laptop was at the time you brought it into your business, because you might be able to claim the full cost or you might well not be able to. If your laptop was 2 years old when you brought it into the business, then it won't be worth as much as you paid for it. So what you'd need to use is the market value at that time. That might be quite difficult to get a hold of now, but have a look at eBay and places like that to get a good estimate of what you should use for market value.
Okay, we've got 2 more questions I think we'll take and then probably call it a day for today.
Yeah.
So Paula's back and she says, it's me again, hello.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Relating to that issue on drawings, can I simply add this as an explanation on my live bank account feed to current and past usage? Will this reflect on my FreeAgent dashboard?
It will indeed, Paula. That is exactly what you should do.
Excellent. Again, short and sweet. And very finally, Dickon is back again. He says, I am buying a business from a sole trader as director of a limited company. What is the most tax efficient way of buying it?
Oh, Dickon,
that's a nice easy one to finish with today.
Okay, well, it depends, Dickon, if the sole trader is you, because there will be issues around, for example, whether you might have to pay capital gains tax on the sale of the business to the company if the sole trader is you. Also, the tax efficiency, it does depend very much on what the business is, because you may well be able to do what's called buying goodwill, which is that the limited company will pay more than the actual worth of the sole trader's assets for the business's name and brand and so forth, and then you'd have some money to draw down against based on that. So I would say get your accountant to crunch the numbers quite carefully, because there is a balance between the goodwill to claim and capital gains tax liability for you as an individual, assuming you're the sole trader the business is brought from. So I'd say go through that with your accountant.
Okay, and we do have a very, very last one that's come through from Radim, which I think we'll take. It says, thanks again, last question, but it's actually unrelated to the topic discussed.
That's all right.
Is there a FreeAgent app for Samsung? So I think for Android.
Yeah.
So it's only able to find for iPhone, but not for Android.
Okay, well, FreeAgent doesn't have an app. FreeAgent is actually a browser-based product, so we don't have an app as such. What you do, Adim, is you'd get your Android phone, your Samsung, and you would open up your browser on that phone, and you'd log into FreeAgent, and you'll find it's fully optimized for mobile display.
So there is an iPhone app, but it's a third
party apps. Good point, Adrian.
But as far as I know, there's not one for Android yet.
No,
I don't think anyone's developed one. But as I say, watch the space in the future. It could well be something that we that we do. But at the minute, no, there isn't. It's we're just mobile optimized.
Yeah.
So I hope that helps. I think we'll call it a day for there. Thank you very, very much indeed, everyone, for your questions. It's been a great session today. Really, really hope all of the information has been useful. If there's anything else that you'd like to ask that we haven't asked in the session, come back next week. We won't be on a hangout, but we will have our regular Q&A sessions, one on Google Plus and also on Facebook as well. We do them at the same time. So on Facebook, we're FreeAgent app. So go and find us there, or just type FreeAgent into the browser and like us there. Google Plus you already know about because you're here. So we'll be posting details of those later in the time. And keep an eye out on Twitter as well, because we do link to a lot of stuff. We're at FreeAgent on Twitter, so if you can follow us, then you'll get all of our stuff. So we've posted, either we have posted or we will post a lot of the links that we've been talking about over on the event page over on Google Plus. So keep an eye out there, and you can link onto those. If not, and there's something else that you want to know, go over to the website, go over to freeagent.com and have a look at our knowledge base and also our blog as well. We've got a lot of info that stretches back a good few years about a lot of these topics, especially working from home and expenses and tax. And you should be able to find something there that will be of use to you. And remember to keep on coming back, because we do post regular stuff that we hope is always useful for people running a business. Very finally, and say as well, if you're on here and you're already using FreeAgent, then brilliant. Thank you very much. Hope you're enjoying it. Remember, you can, if you've got problems or anything, you can either drop us a line on social channels or contact our support team. Always happy to help you. If you've come here and you're not a user of FreeAgent, but you need something to kind of help you with your accounting, your tax, everything else, do pop over to freeagent.com and do have a look. You can take out a 30-day free trial, no obligation or anything else. Just have a play with it and see if it's something that can help your business. And I'd also say if you're too small and you don't think that that's quite right for you yet, then that's fine. But we do also have a free invoicing tool as well called Invoice-O-Matic.
Yep.
Invoice-O-Matic.io. If you go there, it's a fully web-based invoicing tool, which is great fun. So hopefully that'll help you too. We'll post a link up onto the page as well for anyone that's interested in learning a bit more about FreeAgent and seeing what it can do and stuff. Hopefully it's something that you'll enjoy, something you'll like, and you'll keep coming back to these. As I said, next week we'll be back with another Q&A, but until then, thank you very much for coming, and remember to keep an eye out on the social channels, and we'll let you know what's coming next.
We will indeed.
Cool. Thank you, and thank you very much, Emily, as well. We've run her absolutely ragged today, so really hope it was useful. Okay.
Thanks, Adrian.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.